All right, welcome back. So, deja vu. Yet again, another DPC season in the books, and PSG.LGD are the heavy favorites coming into this year's international. And despite the fact that it's been, 4, 5, 6, maybe even more years than that these guys have been hailed as one of, if not the favorite to win the entire tournament, and just the sheer dominance that this organization as a whole has had over the Dota 2 pro scene for the past, decade, maybe more, maybe a little less. And yet TI has just been something that has eluded them this entire time. They have yet to claim a title, and we find ourselves in this position once again. Is this the year that they finally break through as an organization? Is this the year that the members of this team who have not won a championship before finally break through? And is this the year that we finally get a champion in the Chinese region that we haven't had since Faith Beyond and Y, who are on this roster, won it back at TI6 with Wings Gaming? A lot of questions to be answered, and it's just a matter, it feels like, of mindset, because we know how talented this team is. We have seen how dominant they can be. Their results show it in just ridiculous fashion, and we'll get into that when we look at the stats of this team and the stats that they've put up this past year. But it feels like a lot of the time when they do lose at TI specifically, they're beating themselves. They're getting in their own heads. And we've heard this from players of the team before. It is a lot of pressure, and I'm not trying to put that off as such a small thing. I could not imagine playing in the TI11 Grand Finals, or any TI's Grand Finals for that matter. It's a lot of pressure, and it's just going to be a matter of if PSG.LGD will finally be able to overcome it. So let's take a look at this team. First of all, they finished with a total of 2,240 DPC points throughout this past year, well clear of anyone that would have caught up to them in the DPC. They are hundreds of points ahead of second place team OG. They finished first place regionally in China and first place internationally. Their roster consists of the exact same members as the ones that were on the team last year that went all the way to the grand finals. Of course, playing position 1, need I introduce Ame, who has finished second place at 2 TIs now, both TI8 and TI10 with PSG.LGD. He also had a third place finish at TI9 and a fourth place finish at TI7. So in the past 4 TIs, which are the only 4 TIs that he's been to, he has never placed below 4th in the tournament. So Ame, just a beast when it comes to it, but never been able to get that championship so far. Nothing to say coming in. This will be his second international. Last year was his first, of course, finishing second place, losing in the grand finals in 5. Faith Beyond, this will be his third TI. He, of course, won back at TI6 with Wings Gaming, as I previously mentioned. Same thing for Y, their position 5 player. This will be his third international as well. And Jin Q with a second place finish last year at TI10. That is the closest he has ever been to a championship. This will be his third TI as well. And of course, Coach Xiaoba, how could we not mention him? As a player, he has attended TI 6 times. TI 1 through 6 were the ones that he attended. He was a champion back at TI 4 with Newbie. And as a coach, this will be his second time attending a TI. And his only time was, of course, last year, where they lost in the grand finals, finishing second place. So this is a stacked roster, and it feels like they have everything. Again, they have the results, they have the strats, they have the machine perfection. They just have the who's going to stand up to PSG.LGD? These guys are just so intimidating to play against. And not only that, but the results of the players individually speak for themselves too. Every single one of them has been to a grand finals, and many of these guys have never finished anywhere lower than a grand finals before in their careers either, or anything outside of top 4. Taking a look at their results throughout this past year, they just absolutely swept their region throughout the first 2 tours. First place finish in the first Chinese tour, 7-0. First place finish in the first regional finals in China, 3-0 there. They go 6-1 in the second tour in China, earning 400 more DPC points, and then they would win the second regional finals in China as well. First place 4 times in a row, and they accrue immediately right off the bat. What is that? 1,400 points just off of that alone. And you might say, hey, they hadn't played any interregional play until Tour 3. How can we really know how good these guys are? They're only playing within their own region. How are we supposed to know how good the Chinese region is if we're not seeing them play against any other regions? Well, they did a real good job at shutting people up that were saying that, if there were any saying that at all. They would drop down to 4th place in the 3rd tour of the DPC, although that was a 4-way tie from 2nd place all the way to 5th. And once they won the matchup that they needed to, they actually just forfeited the match that they could have won to finish 3rd. They still earned themselves 100 DPC points and a ticket to Arlington, where they would post up the most dominant group stage performance we've seen all year. No team was even close to posting up a record as strong as PSG.LGD did, dropping one single game out of 8 series that they played there, going 7-1-0, and then on the main event, they win 3 straight series, dropping 1 game throughout that entire run as well, before making it to the grand finals. And they would in fact lose in 4 games to Team Spirit, losing more games in that grand finals than they had in the entire tournament up to that point. Does that sound familiar? That's right. That's exactly what happened at TI10. So is this fate? Is this history repeating itself? Is this just what is yet to come for this organization? Are they just doomed to succeed all the way until they meet up against some European powerhouse like OG, like Team Spirit, who's just on a miracle run? Are they just destined for never claiming the Aegis? It would seem that way, because it feels like they have everything they need, and yet they just can't get over the hump. Taking a look now at the results that they've had against other teams attending this year's International, including teams that are in the last chance qualifiers. They played a total of 72 games with a ridiculous 54-18 record. These are teams attending TI, and they posted up a 75% win rate. Yeah, they're pretty damn good at Dota. Tour 1, a clean sweep of the region. Aster, Vici Gaming, and RNG all beaten. We then have the regional finals, where they would only play against RNG as a team attending TI. They would play against eHome as well, but of course eHome will not be attending this year. 2-0 win over RNG, and then a 3-1 win in the grand finals. Tour 2, they would take down Vici Gaming, RNG, and Extreme. They would lose to Aster, but it wouldn't matter. They would still secure that 1st place finish. And in the 2nd regional finals in China, they would take down RNG. They would actually lose the 2nd round, dropping to the lower bracket by Aster. They would have a matchup against Extreme. They would win that one 2-1. They would end up in the grand finals, having a rematch against Aster, where they would get their revenge with a clean sweep, 3-0 finish. Tour 3, again, looks like a bit of a setback. They're losing to Vici, they're losing to Extreme, they're losing to Aster again in those tiebreakers. But then you get to Arlington, and it's just nothing but green. Wins against Talon, OG, Fnatic, Liquid, Virtus Pro, and Thunder Awaken in the group stage. And again, you might be able to say, oh, there's a few weak teams in there. Yeah, no other team has put up a record like this or anything close to it this past year. So easy teams or not, no other team was able to replicate what PSG.LGD did throughout this past year. They would lose 1 game in the group stage, which was to Sonics, which some people found kind of funny, because Sonics has struggled quite a bit at majors throughout their career. But regardless, on the main stage, taking down teams like Boom, OG, and Spirit, but then eventually Spirit would fight their way back to the grand finals and would get their revenge. They would lose that series in 4 to Team Spirit. So at least it's not exactly the same. They didn't lose in 5. Taking a look at their stats now across all of their matches in the DPC this past year, in total of 97 games, where they went 73-24. On Radiant, they were 29-13. On Dire, they were 44-11. 80% win rate on 55 games. What other team is doing this? First pick, 26-15. Last pick, 47-9. 84% win rate on last pick. Again, what other team is putting up these kind of percentages with this many games? It's one thing to do it when you have maybe like 10, 15 games. Even that would be impressive. Try doing it with 56. Radiant first pick, 14-9. Radiant second pick, 15-4. Dire first pick, 12-6. Dire second pick, 32-5. 86% win rate on Dire last pick. You better not be giving these guys Dire last pick in any match at this year's TI. In matches, oh, whoops, I drew the little greater than symbol there on the wrong direction, but regardless, in matches that were less than 40 minutes, they were 59-10, 86% win rate. However, in games that were longer than 40 minutes, we see that win rate come down substantially, 14-14, 50% win rate. So that is really the only flaw I can see in this team, is that if you can take them to the late game, you might have a chance. One problem though, they don't go there very often. Only 28 games of the 97 went past 40 minutes. The other 69 of them, they won 59 in less than 40 minutes, which is ridiculous. So although it might come off as a weakness, yeah, good luck getting there. You have to actually get to that point in the game. And even then, they were still pretty solid. 50% win rate is not terrible. In game ones, there were 30 and 12. Game twos, 32 and 8. 80% win rate in game twos. And in game threes, they were 10 and 3. Game fours, they actually played 2 of them. The first one in the first regional finals and the last one in the Arlington Grand Finals. And they were 1 and 1 in those. For average GPM, 2396, the highest we've seen. Average XPM, 2934, the highest we've seen. And average KDA of 4.13, which is not the highest we've seen, but is still quite high. Definitely not something to be taken lightly. And average match duration, 36 minutes and 21 seconds. For their hero stats now, they played a total of 102 different heroes this past year. Yeah, good luck drafting against these guys when they can play pretty much every single hero in the book. And they didn't even play in patch 7.32 yet. That might have been all the way up to 120 by then. Their most played being Kunkka with 16, Razor with 15, Deathprop at 14. We then had Bane with 12, Phoenix, Tide, and Puck with 11 picks each. Their best heroes being Tiny, who went 10 and 0. We then had Monkey King, who went 7 and 0. Tide Hunter 10 and 1. Templar Assassin and Earth Spirit went 7 and 1. We then had Razor, who went 13 and 2, and Dragonite, who went 6 and 0. Holy shit, these win rates are insane, especially when you think about how many of these heroes they were playing so often. Their worst heroes, Naga Siren, 1 and 3, picked 4 times, still won once, not even that bad. Lena, 1 and 2, that was it. There were no heroes that PSG.LGD played more than once that they didn't have a win on. Every hero that they played more than once had at least a win. Their most banned, Io with 31, same thing for Pangolier, and Storm Spirit with 27, which I thought was a little surprising that Storm Spirit had as many bans as it did. But regardless, PSG.LGD, yeah, the team to beat, and the stats show it. The only real weakness I can find, again, if you can take them past 40 minutes, if you can get in their heads ultimately in the macro game and just the macro tournament, if you could call it that, that is definitely the best way to do it. We know that these guys probably have a whole lot of pressure on them to win, to overcome this hump. So get in their heads. That's the best way to do it. That's the best thing that they can do. Other than that, PSG.LGD, fantastic in the draft, fantastic at playstyle. If they're ahead early, they will keep that lead. They will strangle you out. They will win. If they're behind early, they know exactly what they can sacrifice and when. They know exactly where to do everything to just pull the enemy team apart and slowly but surely take apart that lead until Ame and Nothing to Say are just these absolute beasts that just shred the other team. So to every other team attending TI, I know none of you guys are probably watching this video, but seriously, good luck. Good luck. Because I think although PSG.LGD has faltered a lot in the past, you have to assume that they'll break through at some point. This might be the year. But again, deja vu. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you have missed any of my previews that I've done in the past, feel free to check them out. Link in the description, as well as the link to our Discord. I will be doing previews for both of the winners of the Last Chance qualifiers as well. So if you don't want to miss that, check that out. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, like, share, subscribe if you guys enjoyed, and I will be talking to you guys very shortly. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.